Okay, this is now the 5-minute tarot for the 24th of March 2017, and today I'd like to talk about the difference between 7 and 9, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I'd like to mention first that I think the astrology website will be ready, ideally be ready today, if not tomorrow, and I'll tell you in tomorrow's video what the URL is, only because if I'm doing all this myself, and if I get stuck or if something comes up, then it's not going to be ready tomorrow. But it will be. There'll be something there. There's 11 videos that I've done, and I've got the links, and I've got an introductory video, so you get an idea of what the site is about. But I've got a little bit of tweaking to do, and a little bit of text to incorporate onto different pages. Okay, so the tarot thing today. A few days ago, Bruce left a comment about 9 being as the end. I think it was a 9 of Pentacles as the end of something. And I replied that 7 is a number of completion too. So 9 is obviously an end because it's the last of the single digits, 9 followed by 10. And 10 is 1 plus nothing, gets you back to 1 again. So 9 is the end of the cycle in its own way. But there's 7 days in a week. And a week is a natural or a normal cycle for us. So 7 is an ending as well, or the completion of a cycle. So it might be useful for us to have a better understanding of what the tarot is and what cards might mean if we consider the difference between 7 and 9. So, and I'm thinking, how can we make sense of the number 7 and the number 9 using cards rather than convert it into a system of numerology or planetary rulership? How can we work with cards to get cards to explain themselves in some kind of way? So what I'd like to do is consider that 7 is 3 plus 4. Although 7 is also 1 and 6 and 2 and 5. But for the moment, for this particular video, I'd like to consider 7 as 3 and 4. Although 1 and 6 to consider together to give 7, and 2 and 5 will give us other answers maybe, or other ideas that we can develop or that we can think about, so that when we come upon a 7, let's say the 7 of Cups or Swords, then the reader, the person thinking about the meaning of the card or the significance of the card, has a different starting point because they've done thinking about the 3 plus 4, or they've got a slightly more complete starting point for giving an interpretation. Because what you're doing is you're not giving more meanings to the questioner, but you're speaking more knowledgeably about the card, let's say the 7 of Cups, and its place and its role in the answer shown by the spread. So I'd like to look at 7 and 9 and give you a couple of ideas about a method you might like to try. So if we see 7 as 3 and 4, the third major trump is the Empress, the fourth major trump is the Emperor. So 7 is a combination of the Empress and the Emperor. It's a combination of masculine and feminine, of active and passive. But somehow you're active enough and passive enough at the same time that there's a good combination between them. So I'm not saying that one is better or worse, that the feminine or the masculine is better, because maybe the Empress is actually better. Although we certainly can't live without the Empress, because even if the masculine might be the starting point. I'm thinking of men and women here. So the man might be the one who starts it rolling, but if there's no woman there, you need the woman, you need the container. And I say container because the first word in the Bible is Bereshith. I think that's how you pronounce it. And the first letter of the first word is Beit. I think, again, that's how you pronounce it. And Beit is the archetype. And arche in this case means first. It's the first type. It's the archetype of all containers. So the Bible begins by telling us, okay, first you've got this container. You've got this, whatever it is, because if there's no container, then the energy is just flying around all over the place and it's doing nothing and it's really going nowhere and it's not producing anything. But when there's a container, something can happen. And that's maybe why I say we need a question, because the question is like the container for the answer. If you have no question, then cards can mean anything and you can take them in multiple different directions. But are you really getting anywhere if there's no container? Maybe not, but a question is like a container. So with 7 as 3 plus 4, it's as if we've got a correct combination of active and passive. And active can mean that you do what's required, as well at the same time doing from the Emperor, being the masculine force, but at the same time there's a sense of correct amount of being from the Empress. So that's 7. If we think upon 9 as 4 plus 5, again it's 3 and 6 and 2 and 7 and 1 and 8. But because we looked at the 7 as 3 plus 4, I kind of like to look at 9 as 4 again plus 5. Right, so here we've got the 9s can represent a combination of the Emperor and the Hierophant. Major trump number 4 and major trump number 5. So let's say the Emperor represents power. And we take the original idea of the Hierophant, who was the person who helped people to make a fresh start or to negotiate and work through the first steps or the first stages in a new kind of development. It's as if the Hierophant will take you to the next level or tell you what you need to know so that you can step up, or so that you can go to the next level, or so you can make an improvement. So if we think of the Emperor as power and the Hierophant as this assistant, then maybe 9, because it's 4 and 5, represents or is pointing out what you do is you consolidate, because that's what the Emperor might do. You consolidate, but in a wider area. The Hierophant showing people how to go to the next level. So you consolidate in a wider area or in more areas. And that can be the motivation or the reason for a 9 coming up in a reading, that the person's meant to consolidate, but go beyond what they already know or what they're already familiar with and do something new. And that in its own way is the end of the cycle, the beginning of a new one. So the 9 of Cups, with the 9 of Cups, is the wish card. So maybe with the 9 of Cups, you're set. So what you're meant to do is expand into new areas, or maybe expand into more generous activities. I'm thinking of the 9 of Cups as being somebody who's well off. So what do? You're going to stay well off, but what can you do for other people? How can you be more generous? Then with the 9 of Swords, you've got the power for the Emperor, but what are you going to do with it that will open new doors for you as well as for other people? And that's a Hierophant idea of being of assistance to people who want to or who are on a path of developing. With the 9 of Coins, there's financial security from the Emperor. But with the Hierophant, now what? Are you going to give backing? Okay, you've made it, you've developed, and you've got a certain amount of wealth. Are you going to give backing or support to people who don't have your income or savings? And in that way, help them make a transition into a better life. And at the same time, you do yourself a lot of good by being of assistance to other people. And then with the 9 of Batons, we look at the picture and the fellow's got the bandage. So maybe with the Emperor, it's an indication that you've been called upon to be a protector, right? The Emperor's the warrior and the fellow's got the bandage. So you're a protector. And maybe the next step is, how can you get the people you've been protecting to protect themselves? What can you teach them? What can you show them? How can you get them organized so that they can protect themselves? And that's a new beginning for them, as well as a new beginning for the Emperor or for you, the questioner. Okay, that's it. I think tomorrow's card is going to be Temperance, but we'll see if that changes. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.